I'm sure you noticed we were at the community center for VBS, and the reason we did that, which was also pretty evident up there, is because one of the things Jess wanted to put into our VBS is that a big part of the Christian life is serving others. And so on one of the days they went to the library and participated in some community activities, which is awesome. And then on Friday they went to the nursing home, and we wanted to be in walking distance because if you have to drive there with 30 kids, it gets messy and you got to get waivers and all kinds of stuff. So we did it at the community center where we were walking distance from the nursing home, and they walked down, played games with them, performed their song for the people at the nursing home, and everybody came back. Literally everybody came back. The adults that were helping the kids, and we're like, that was awesome. That was the golden moment, seeing the kids sit down and learn new games, card games with the old people. Most of our kids lost money. I don't know how that happened, but no, no, they had a good time. It was awesome. It was a great week, and it's been a little surreal for me mainly because I am 52 years old and I'm still dressing up and acting like an idiot for kids. And there was a point where I was like, I came home one day and I asked us, I was like, do you think I'm ever going to get mature enough that I don't do this anymore? Like, that I don't dress up and act stupid for kids? And she was like, no, there will never come that day. And it really was, because I've done kids ministry in some form for over 30 years. And I have made the biggest fool out of myself. And actually, Keith and I kind of joked around because when I told him I was going to have everybody come out in front of the adults, and Keith will do anything in front of the kids, he was like, hold on, whoa, grown-ups? I don't know that I can do grown-ups. And which I totally feel, because I used to, there is no end. I did female characters. There is no end to the crazy stuff I've done to teach kids something. And then they would be like, hey, can you bring one of your characters out on Sunday just to do the announcements? I'd be like, oh God, I'm going to throw up. I don't know if I can do that. Like, grown-ups are so much different than kids. But I got to thinking, I've got pastor friends who I get together with, and we talk about, phrases like how much, how many, stats and figures, church growth, blah, blah, blah. And I have pastor friends who talk about theology and doctrine, and will quote reformers and Christian thinkers and what books are you reading. And I don't have any pastor friends who dress up in overalls and sing off key and act like an idiot all week. So I don't know if that is a good thing or a bad thing that your senior pastor will make an idiot of himself, but that's who we are. And this week, as we were kind of at the pool yesterday, and I was going off the diving board like all the kids, acting like an idiot. It's the first time I've ever wondered if I'm ever going to grow up. And what's funny is when I started kids ministry, I didn't like it. I didn't like the concept. I didn't even like the idea. It was kind of weird. We were the one family, I don't remember how many kids we had, but it seemed like a lot back then, who, when they would release all the kids for kids ministry, my kids stayed with me. Like, we believed in doing church together as a family. And so my kids stayed, they sat next to me, and we all did church together. And it's kind of like if you've ever been to our Monday night Bible study, it's kind of like that. We like teaching everybody together. And even though on Monday nights I aim my teachings at the kids talk, and I ask them questions and we engage them, there hasn't been an adult that comes on Monday night that doesn't go, actually, I'm kind of learning. This is good for me too. Like, there's some good stuff in here that I need. And so we did church that way. My kids would sit with me. On the way home, I'd ask them questions about the sermon. What did you think of this? What did you think of that? And then the children's pastor of the church we were at heard that I used to do some silly characters when I was in high school. I did some drama, and I did some goofy characters that I'd picked up, and so he asked me if I'd come and do one in kids ministry. And so I said yes, and I took all the kids with me, and while I was in kids ministry, the kids were in kids ministry. If I wasn't scheduled that week, they stayed up with me in the sanctuary, and it went like that for a while, and the children's pastor was finally like, do you not trust me? Like, you never leave your kids. I was like, no, we just believe in doing church together, and we always have, and and whatnot. And I had to tell him, I was like, I don't know that I like kids ministry. Like, I don't know I like splitting us all up and learning different things at different times. And it was something I struggled with. And then one day, I was reading Genesis 15. And I'm actually going to read that. If you want to turn there, if you brought your Bibles, you can. Genesis 15. Verse 1, it says, "Sometimes later the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, 'Don't be afraid, Abram. I will protect you, and your reward will be great.'" Now, most of us, dude, that's all we want to hear. Like, God's like, "I'm going to bless you," and we're like, right on. That's all I want. I want to know you're going to bless me. Like, and whatever that blessing is, I don't care if it's financial. I don't care if I'm going to bless you with people loving you. I'm going to, when God says I'm going to reward you, most of us are like, bring it on. Like, bring it on. And Abraham, for some reason this time I was reading it, Abraham's response shocked me. In verse 2 it says, "But Abram replied, 'O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings if I don't have a son? Since you've given me no children, Eleazar of Damascus, a servant in my household, is going to inherit all my wealth. You've given me no descendants of my own, so one of my servants will be my heir.'" And then the Lord goes and promises him he's going to have a son. But something about Abraham's answer going, "What good is it for you to bless me if it doesn't go to the next generation? What good is it for you to bless me if the next generation doesn't get that blessing? Then it's just mine for a little bit and it's gone." And something about reading that grabbed my heart, and so I started asking as I was, because at that time I'd sit in the service and during worship and I'd be praying, "God, send your Spirit, Holy Spirit, fall on us. Like, come on, let's do this. Let's rock this place." And for the first time ever, I started praying, "But God, if you bless us up here and you don't bless what's going on downstairs, what's the point? Like, what's the point if you pour yourself out on us and you don't also grab our kids? If you don't also..." So my prayer became Abraham's. "O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings if the kids don't also get it? What good are all your blessings and all the moves of your Spirit and all the things you want to do if it doesn't reach the next generation?" And so at that time, I poured myself into kids ministry. And I was like, my life has to be about the next generation. It has to be about blessing kids. And if ever I feel like God is, in our context, if God is moving upstairs and he's not also moving downstairs, then we're out of balance. Something's wrong. And we're not praying with Abraham, what good is this if it doesn't go to the next generation? And then last year, I preached a passage that's still kind of rocking my world. I don't know how often my sermons stick with you guys, but they stick with me like crazy. I preach it myself in my own head all the time. It's not uncommon for me to preach something and then either for my wife to beat me up with it. She loves to throw my own words back at me. Or just in my own head, the things that I preach come back. And last year I preached this passage and it hasn't left me alone since. It's in Joshua 4. If you're in your Bible. It says, "When all the people crossed the Jordan," this is when the Israelites had been in the wilderness for 40 years, they're finally going into the promised land to start their real life where they're going to have homes and farms and things to do, and it's time to go into the real world. It says, "When all the people had crossed the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, 'Now choose 12 men, one from each tribe. Tell them, take 12 stones from the very place where the priests are standing in the middle of the Jordan. Carry them out and pile them up at the place where you will camp tonight.' So Joshua called together the 12 men he had chosen, one from each of the tribes of Israel. He told them, 'Go into the middle of the Jordan, in front of the ark of the Lord your God. Each of you must pick up one stone and carry it out on your shoulder, 12 stones in all, one for each of the tribes of Israel. We will use these stones to build a memorial. In the future, your children will ask you, what do these stones mean? And you can tell them, they remind us that the Jordan River stopped flowing when the Ark of the Lord's covenant went across. These stones will stand as a memorial among the people of Israel forever. And so Joshua put up stones, and they were stacked oddly, oh my gosh, the thing where all the stones are. What? Like what? Yeah, Stonehenge. That's what I'm trying to think of. I don't know why Stonehenge wouldn't come to mind. But like Stonehenge, one of those things that does not look natural. You know, you see a stack of 12 stones, you know it didn't just fall that way. And it makes people go, what's that about? What is that about? Why is that there? Dad, what's with the stones? And you get to tell the stories. You get to go, oh, that's the day God blessed it. That's the day God did this. That's the day God did that. And it's a visual reminder that's supposed to spark conversation and teaching. Except the saddest verse in the whole Bible is in Judges chapter 2, the very next book. In verse 7 it says, and the Israelites served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua. Joshua is the one we just read about who made them stack up the stones. It says they served throughout the lifetime of Joshua and the leaders who outlived him, those who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at age 110. They buried him in the land he had been allocated at Timnath-Serah in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gosh. After that generation died, another generation grew up who did not acknowledge the Lord or remember the mighty things he had done for Israel. That's the saddest verse in the whole Bible for me. Joshua set up these stones, he set up these pillars, and he said, this is so that we can pass this on to the next generation. This is so that we can hand this off and that somebody else can ask the questions, why is this here? And we can go, because of the God that we serve. And then it records that it didn't work. It didn't work. And the bummer is actually back where we just were. It's back in Joshua. Right after he said, this is what you're going to say when the kids ask what these stones are for. It says, so the men did as Joshua had commanded. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, one for each tribe, just as the Lord had told Joshua. They carried them to the place where they had camped for the night and constructed the memorial there. Joshua also set up another pile of 12 stones in the middle of the Jordan at the place where the priests who carried the ark had come before. And they're still there to this day. This book was compiled and put together. Experts believe it was almost, this book was kind of put in its final form that we get to see close to 1,000 years after it actually happened. And they think this line was one of those lines the people putting it together put in, like, and just for note, that stack of stones is actually still there. You can go see it today. The stones that Joshua brought out of the Jordan River way back then are still there, which terrifies me. Because it means that the pillars we have, the pillars we count on, the things that we think are automatically going to hand the gospel to our kids aren't enough. Just bringing your kids to church is not enough. Just putting them in kids' ministry and hoping that they catch it that way is not enough. Just having Bibles sitting around your house and having verses on the wall is not enough. Those pillars are great. They're there for a reason. They're supposed to be there. Just like Joshua's monument was great. It was supposed to serve a purpose, but we have to actually engage them. We have to actually include them. We have to actually talk about them. We have to actually, just putting the pillar up is not enough. You have to stop and go, this is what this is. This is why this is there. This is what this is for. If you don't tell the stories, if you don't engage them, then your monuments are just a pile of rocks. It only becomes a monument when you continually tell the stories, when you continually talk about the things God has done and is doing, when you keep them in front of the kids. This week we had so many adults and teens and sacrifice their time to tell the stories. And I was so grateful. And it's one of those things that you have to be there to get it, but to watch everybody's faces just smiles and just enjoying the atmosphere and we were worn out. And Jess and I talked about this morning. It's so weird because it's not really that hard of work, but it's a different energy level. You come home at noon like, I can't hardly stand up. I don't know what we just did, but it's wore me out. And when you go back and like, what'd you do? I don't know. I talked to kids, and I pretty much what I do every day, but it's different. But it took me back to Abraham saying, what good is it if it doesn't go to the next generation? And Joshua saying, hey, put up the stack of rocks so we don't miss the next generation. And even Jesus, who in Matthew 19, the kids tried to come to him and his disciples said, no, we're doing grown-up stuff. We're doing important stuff. We're doing real stuff, like miracles and teachings and Messiah stuff. We don't have time for kids. And Jesus shut it down. He said, don't you ever stop the kids from coming to me, because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Like that's where you find the kingdom of heaven. I used to come up and say all the time that most of us are too old to really impact the kingdom anymore. The best hope we have is to encourage the kids. And somebody corrected me on that, and I don't really say that anymore because I don't feel like you're, as I was corrected, that you're ever too old to make a difference, that you're ever too old to impact people. But I do believe no matter how far back you go, this whole thing is pointless if we can't pass it on to the next generation. I came up and talked the day that I taught on that passage in Joshua and Judges about the women's 4x100 Olympic team that had the 4 fastest women in the world. If you rank the women 1, 2, 3, 4, all 4 were on the same relay team one year, and it was an anomaly. They were expected to win everything. They were expected to crush everything, and they lost to Jamaica because they fumbled the handoff. And everybody knew they had more speed, more talent, more power, more everything. They had everything you could possibly want, and they fumbled the handoffs and got beat. 4 years later, same 4 girls got beat again because they couldn't get the handoff. And I think Christianity is the same way. We can have all the power, all the knowledge, all the beautiful worship. We can have everything. We can give. We can serve. We can rock this community. And if we fail the handoff, we did nothing. If we can't hand it off to the next generation, we still lose. But I'll say with Abraham, what good is it if God blesses us if we can't hand it off? So the way that I would love to close this message is with a song, if the worship team will come back. And I love this song because it blends an old song that if you're my age, you'll recognize the words and you'll love it. And it was rewritten in a new way just this year. And it's got a line that says, I sought the Lord, and he heard and he answered. And some of us sought the Lord when we were kids. And he heard and he answered. I was 16. Some of you were like me. You were a teenager and you sought the Lord. And he heard and he answered. Some of you were adults and just recently sought the Lord. And he heard and he answered. And I love this song because no matter where you are, he hears and he answers. So if you would stand with me, we're just going to sing one song and then we'll go to the table.